For a copy of the slides, which has some links in it there, the link is in the bottom right-hand corner. It's bit.ly, so bit.ly/TB_Madeira. So TB being Trevor. So bit.ly/TB_Madeira. And Madeira is spelled Madeira. All right, this is it. Oh, and just so you know, this is the night view of Funchal, which is the main city on the island of Madeira. Off into, will it show up? Stop here. Off here, will it show me? Give me a laser. Won't give me my laser. Come on, give me my laser. There we are. So that right here, this is where the cruise ships usually come in. This whole strip down here is the main walking path that everyone kind of goes in the tour sections. And as you'll see, Madeira is basically an old volcano, so everything's uphill. So this is from one of the restaurants, a night view that you can see. Okay, for those of you that don't know me, my name's Trevor Beck. I am recently retired from MacEwan University. I was there for 31 years, got off on good behavior. Oh no, it would be 25. And I've been voted off of more islands and departments than probably anyone. So I started off in marketing and communications. I went over to the registrars. From the registrars, I went over to tech support on web services. After web services, I got moved back to tech support, doing it as a trainer. So I've been around most of the campuses in the last 30 years, as well as different areas and different offices. And we always made a joke that we should start doing tour T-shirts, and the bands have tour T-shirts. We were going to put all the different offices and campuses, and I said, I'll need a cape, so T-shirt won't work. If you have any questions after the session, you think about something, you can feel free to reach me out at beckt@macewan.ca. I'm still using that email address. It still works. And we're not going to be able to cover everything in the 1 hour session. So if you have questions, by all means, feel free to reach out. Retirement, travel, drone, life's just beginning. That's my motto. When I retired, and I basically said, that's it, we are going traveling. And that's what my wife, Shelley here, some of you may remember her as Shelley Hayward from Business Outreach. You were doing a question, weren't you, wondering where it's going with that? She's now Shelley Beck. So, but yeah, so that's what we've been kind of focusing on, is doing the traveling. And she let me buy a drone for my retirement gift. So that's also what I've been doing. Here's our agenda. We're going to do a quick overview of the island. We're then going to look at lifestyle in Madeira, cost of living, the healthcare, moving there, because one of the things that we decided after spending 3 months there this last year, that we are going to move there. So we are going to be keeping our house here, but the plan is to go for 1 to 2 years as a start in Madeira and live there. So we'll talk about that, and at the end we'll go through any questions that anyone has. Am I going too fast? I get excited, and so I sometimes speed up. Okay. Disclaimer. What you're about to hear today is my experience and how I've interpreted facts. I could be wrong. Whenever possible, Shelley will correct me. But I mean, we both may be wrong in just the way we've interpreted things. But just so you understand, we are not an official policymaker or knowledgeable people. We spent 5 weeks in Portugal about 5 years ago. We did 3 months this past December, January, February. So we're there for the winter, and that's pretty. And a lot of reading, a lot of research. So that's about where all that comes from. As far as good resources, there are some great groups on Facebook. So Portugal travel tips for just going through anywhere in Portugal, Madeira expat community. And again, if you have that link, bit.ly/TB_Madeira, you've got access to all these links. The Madeira expat community is a great one. The community is meant more for people who are expats that are living there, but we learned so much just, kind of, what's the word, just hovering and watching what was going on. If you want, my Facebook profile is open. So if you've got a Facebook account, you can go and find me and go to my Facebook. Scroll back to December 15th. Through the 3 months that we were there, I documented a whole bunch of things that we won't be able to talk about today, but all sorts of cool things like, some of the foliage that's there. You'll come and see people are working on sidewalks that look like little chunks of rock, and you think, just pave over it. No, they actually have 3 or 4 people that'll sit there on their knees, chipping away, putting in new blocks instead of replacing it with concrete. So there's all kind of observations that I had and stuff, as well as pictures and videos and stuff. Madeira Island web cameras. The video that I had going on before has quick samples of them. These are actually the full-length cameras, so you can just stare at, you know, one location for, you know, all day kind of thing. I start my mornings usually that way. I have a half an hour and I go through all the video cameras going, I want to go back. So those are things that make a good resource for you. And even if you're not looking at moving there, just understanding more about life in Portugal, there's a great document on the pros and cons of living in Portugal. So our story. About 5 years ago, or sorry, actually about 8 years ago, a bunch of our friends were all talking, and everyone was saying, yeah, when we retire, we're going to move to Scotland. When we retire, we're moving to Halifax. We've got a place in Vancouver. And Cheryl and I looked at each other going, well, why are we staying in Edmonton? Because, I mean, as you know, you could have kids living in Edmonton and they don't talk to you anyways. So what's the point of sticking around? So yeah, everyone's laughing. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. So basically what we decided is we're going to go traveling. International Living is a magazine that basically is designed for expats. They sell you a bunch of services, you know, attend our webinars for $500 and, you know, crap like that. One of the things that they do, though, that's valuable is they put out best places to live every year. And at that point in time, Costa Rica was #1, Panama was #2. So we decided we'd go check Panama out. We were there for 5 weeks, and Panama is too hot. So we passed on that. Then we decided, well, let's go to Portugal. So we were going to do 5 weeks away, 3 weeks in Portugal, 2 weeks into Spain. And then one day I was scrolling through videos about Portugal, and I saw this video. And I don't know if you can hear the audio very well. Maybe it's bigger. I can't. Anyway, this is the fireworks on the island for New Year's Eve. They have won the Guinness World Book of Records for 5 years in a row. We were there at New Year's Eve this last year. The first time we went. But there were 52 different stations they were launching fireworks from. And you'll notice that there's on the backside, on the other side of these mountains, it's down here, it's all over the place. 20 minutes of it, going like crazy. And scroll to the first, you'll see the fireworks. And so it's wild. And it kept what fireworks. There's all outside there as well that are all watching. When we looked at that, it said so Madeira, the island, made up of a number of different communities. But what I want to show you is where it's actually located. So here is Spain and France, and there's Morocco. Madeira is right here, which is kind of weird because you'd think, oh, it's closer to Morocco than Portugal, but Madeira is there. Portugal owns Madeira. In fact, Portugal also is responsible for the Azores. You probably have heard that as well. So the Azores and Madeira are all considered kind of like one area. Down below, whoops, come on, scroll, not that way, move. Okay, down here is the Canary Islands. And the Canary Islands are owned by Spain, which makes no sense. It's way over there, but that's what it is. So let me just take you in really quick, closer here to, go away, Madeira. Here, and then let's go into 3D, because that's where you're going to see it. That Madeira is actually basically an old volcano. And when we zoom in here, you can see all the different ridges and stuff. And there are so many beautiful spots. There's so for viewpoints. There's so many cliffs and valleys and nature walks and stuff. It's absolutely stunning. So on the island of Madeira, there's about 250,000 residents. The capital of Madeira is Funchal. Funchal is located right about here. So it's this kind of area in here and a little bit over here. 150,000 people live in the city of Funchal. That's basically the population of Red Deer over a much bigger space. So it's the cool thing about it is even during the busiest times when we're walking down the streets and stuff, it'll be busy, but nowhere near as busy as going down Jasper pre-COVID, not now, don't go down Jasper now, but going down Jasper on a lunch hour. You know, used to get crowded, your arms get tight in. We never had that problem when we were in Madeira, even when the cruise ships would show up. Now, it'd still get busier, but I mean, it would be nowhere near as bad as you've seen here in Edmonton. So this is Funchal, and you can't see it very well, but I'm just going to zoom in real quick. But yeah, it's got some height to it. So up top here is the botanical gardens, and I'm just going to switch over to Google for a second here. Google's great when you go and look at that. So here's those gardens. Here down here is the water's edge, and there is a gondola that runs from point to point there. It takes about 20 minutes to go up. It is a stunning ride. If you're afraid of heights, you will not want to go on it because you are looking down 300-400 feet easily. Actually, if it's not higher than that. Now, when you take a look at this, Google says, hey, you know what? It's only 3.7 kilometers. It's going to take you an hour and 11 minutes. Not a problem. And so for the first couple of times when we'd go out, I'd say to Shelley, yeah, it's going to take us X number of times. What you learn very quickly is there's this little thing here that shows you the angle and the altitude. So that walk that takes an hour and 10 minutes is 544 meters. It's a third of a mile straight up. And so there, most of the time you're walking at an angle like this. We had actually gone up to the gondola, and there's a ride, not a ride, give me a second. It's a toboggan run that they have. And it's a touristy thing, but you come down halfway down and then they get off and then they say you can take a cab or you can take a bus or whatever. And Shell and I looked at each other and go, it's just down there to the water. Let's just walk. It took us about an hour and a half to get down there. And if you've got bad knees, they are really sore by the time you get to the bottom. If you get good knees, they're sore when you get to the bottom. So it is an angle like this and you're going thump, thump, thump. So it's very funny because as we were checking places out, we'd go to shopping malls and stuff, and it's like, we'll get off at this stop, and then we'll just walk the the short distance, and then you learn to look at this chart to see what the angle is. Basically, when you're on Funchal, if you're down by the water, everything's uphill. If you're going north, you're going uphill somewhere, and that's just one of the things to be aware of as you explore the island. Here. And again, for those of you that are online, I'm just going to remind you, if you've got a question, there's that link at the top there if you want to throw in a question, and I'll talk to you about it afterwards. Here's the island. It's made up of 10 different municipalities. I talked to you about the population and stuff. What's really kind of cool about the population, so there's these areas there. Because of all the cliffs and stuff like that, road work and roads to get around the island have been pretty limited until the last 20, 30 years. So what that means is I think it's 800, 900 years that the island's been populated. So when people come to Funchal for some of the big festivals and stuff, you're going to have someone from the north side of the island, and the guys to the south are going, what'd you say? Because they have been so insulated from each other for so long that their dialect has changed. It's like, we're having a true newfie come in here and talk to you, and you're sitting there going, I know it's English, but I don't understand. And that's very common with Madeira as well. Over the last 30 years, they've developed more of their roads. They've got more tunnels and going through the mountains. There's nothing weirder than traveling at 80 kilometers an hour through a tunnel for 5 minutes underground. So that's kind of wild. And when you're traveling through, they have these signs that shows a picture of a big guy walking and a little guy. And there's arrows pointing. And the arrows are saying this is the entrance to go to that's the closest because you've been traveling underground for 5 kilometers or how many kilometers it is. But then as you get closer to this one, it gets bigger. And as you get farther away from this one, it gets smaller. That's how they kind of indicate which is the best way to go when you're trying to decide which way to exit if you're walking. But it's just a cool experience, but it's all, like I said, just the last 30 years they've been doing all of that. The width of the island is 34 miles. Top to bottom, biggest part is 14 miles. Highest point, though, is 6,106 feet. Okay, so it's over a mile from the bottom up to the top, from sea level up to the top of the mountains. And the coastline is about 90 miles. Excuse me, which you think, hour and a half, we can do it, right? You're not doing 110. You're doing 80 maybe, and you're doing curves because, it's not like there's actually a road that goes across the water. A lot of the freeways, a lot of the highways and the roads are up at the top of the cliffs, not down on the bottom on the waterway. So they say you can do it within 4 to 5 hours, but you're not stopping. And there's stunning cliffs and drop-offs and valleys and stuff. beautiful things to see. So of course you're going to want to stop. Come on, move to the next slide. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. There you go. What's that? What was the question? If you rent a car. If you rent a car. Yeah. Yeah, and then you can hire a driver. We often had done that, not often, we did that. So a lot of people will just do that. One of the things that we kind of decided is I wouldn't drive so that I could see, look at stuff, right? Because it's hard to drive and then go, ooh, look at that. Because again, you're coming on cliffs that are like a quarter of a mile drop. And quite frankly, it's freaky. So Funchal is the city that we're going to be moving to. And I just want to show you what it looks like. Okay, someone made a comment they can't see what's going on, so I'm just going to quickly take a look. All right, my head shouldn't be in the way now. All right, those of you online, is my head in the way now? As far as, because you should be seeing a screen share. Okay, I'm going to move on. Funchal, top European destination for the last 8 years. It's won a number of different awards there. It's Europe's answer to Hawaii. And so what that means, you've got lots of different people coming there during different times of the year. So July and August is busy with a lot of locals, a lot of Portuguese, as well as other Europeans are going to come travel to Madeira. Not that they won't go to other parts of the EU and that, but it's just one of those things like Hawaii. Everyone wants to go there. So July and August gets busy with a lot of local Europeans. When it comes to Christmas and New Year's, it's December and January, you're getting a lot of the cruise ships coming in. So from what I've been told is the Canary Islands gets kind of cool. So instead of going through the Canary Islands on the cruise ships come to Madeira instead. So the big tourist season for Madeira as far as cruise ships is November through to March, April, somewhere in there. After that, it warms up and they go back to the Canary Islands. So you don't get a lot of cruise ships coming through in the summertime. It's mostly just the tourists coming to do the wandering and stuff. And when you get these different tourists coming in, I mean, you're getting the Brits, you're getting the Germans, you're getting South Africans, and of course the Portuguese as well. But when you talk about people moving there, it's typically the Brits, the Germans, and the South Africans make up the majority of the population. A lot of Americans think that they are the important people, they are the ones that people are coming for. Canadians and Americans make up about 2% of the expat community in Portugal. So it's kind of entertaining to listen to some of the comments that the Americans make. Not that they're all like that, but some of them need a reality check. Okay, what's the weather like? Here's the big question. If you are someone that wants to be in what's the word? In the beaches, in the hot beaches, and sitting in the sun and stuff, and having fun on the beaches, Madeira is not for you. It is not super hot, 37s and stuff like that. During the winter, the temperature typically this winter was exceptionally different and cooler, which I mean everyone in the world has been talking about. But I mean typically it's 14 degrees at night and 22 degrees during the day. We were there, probably the coldest ever got was 9 degrees, but at night 12 degrees. And the warmest it got 21 one time. But the cool thing about this, like my wife and I, we love fresh air. We have doors and windows open all night long for 3 months straight. There was one day we went down to 9. It just got a bit chilly, so we definitely went in and shut the doors. But it's beautiful. And the first day we were there, it was 15 degrees, and 15 degrees, if it's sunny out, you can get heat stroke. I can tell you from personal experience. So sunstroke, not heat stroke, sunstroke. So yeah, you can get sunstroke. The sun is still quite strong. In the summertime, supposedly 20 to 26 is the kind of the range that you're looking at there. And again, for me, 25, 26, that's my beauty. Anything warmer than that is just wasted on me because I'm now into air conditioning areas. The nice thing about Madeira, the reason it's so cool is because they've got all these ocean breezes that are coming in from the south. But what's also kind of neat is that because it's an island of mountainous ranges, if you're too hot, get in a car, drive 20 minutes up the mountain somewhere, up the hill, go to a different town or something like that, and the temperatures are cooler. Even in Funchal, you'll see the mountains come up and you'll see a range where it just kind of like stops. And that's about 600 meters up from what I'm told. That's where everyone goes if they want to be really cool. The problem though, that's great for summer, but that means the winter it is a little bit cooler. You're not getting the highs of 20, 22. You're probably getting the highs of like 17, 18. And it's more rain and stuff like that because you're in the higher altitude of the mountains. But you have that option. If it's hot out, get in a car, grab a bus, go to one of the other towns that's up the mountain or something like that. An hour later, and you're in cool area. And that's important. And we'll talk a bit more about that because there's no air conditioning in the buildings. Hotels, of course, but for the most part, no. So what is Madeira known for? Well, it's known for fruit, specifically bananas. Bananas are growing all over the lower ranges of the mountain. I mean, every window that we look out, we can see a banana grove. In fact, we can walk out the door and there's a banana tree there and you can just pick it right off there. So bananas are quite popular. A lot of, give me a second, meals are created with bananas in them. So there's a lot of fish meals with banana. I haven't had a lot of those, but they're there. So, but there's fruits are all over the place. Pineapples, bananas, strawberries, what else? Passion fruit, all sorts of stuff. And it's all fresh right there on the island. It's gorgeous. The other thing it's known for is Madeiran wine. Everyone's familiar with port, which comes from Porto. All right, so it's a way that they take wine and they stop the fermenting process. Madeira does the same thing. They have a little different way and a different level that they stop the fermenting process, but the Madeiran wine is quite popular there. Shelley, have you had a glass of Madeiran wine there?
Not just one glass.
Okay, good. So I don't drink that much. Other thing is sugarcane. Lots of sugarcane on the island. Again, as you go up into the cooler temperatures, some of these fruits don't work very well or don't grow very well, so they switch it up. So in parts of the island, sugarcane grows great, but not bananas. They do sugarcane and they make rum from it. And that's also, again, something very popular. And we'll talk a little bit later about one of their local drinks that they use the sugarcane rum for. Tourism and festivals. I think just recently in the last week or so, they received another award for European top festival location or something like that. And the festivals, it seems like they've got 2 or 3 different festivals every month. The cool thing, though, is that there are festivals that take place in Funchal. People come there they're from around the island as well as from Europe, but also each of the different municipalities sometimes have their own festivals. So you'll see a lot of people that are going to leave one part of Funchal and maybe go to Calhete or one of the other areas for their festival. So lots of different festivals. Tourism, as I mentioned before, there's tours you can get on all the time, like bus tours, short, what do you want to call them? Travel vans and stuff like that. So you can be on a big, huge bus. You can be on your own travel van. You can be in a 4-wheeler. You can be on all sorts of different things, and they'll take you around the island. Hiking, biking, and nature. Those are just some of the things that are constantly being talked about. And you saw some of the images there of the forest. They have the UNESCO forest there. They've got lush green mountains. They've got these beautiful valleys. They've got these cliffs that just drop off. They're just stunning to watch. And even though we were there in the wintertime, and some of the areas tend to be a little more rainy in that, but I've seen the pictures of just amazing views during the spring and the summer. But even in the wintertime, you never know what the temperature is going to be, right? One side of the island is going to be rainy, and 30 minutes later, you're in the sun. So it just depends. Golf courses, Dolphins, whales, and fishing is also available. We went on a whale or a dolphin shot or a dolphin thing. It's very cool. It's really neat when you watch the guys, because they actually have guys up in the mountain with binoculars about this long, and they're scouting for the dolphins, and then they radio down to the boats, and then the catamarans make their way to where all the dolphins happen to be, because the schools are moving from one side to the other. It's really, really cool. Digital nomads was a big thing when COVID first came out. One of the first big digital nomad pushes was for Madeira. So Ponta do Sol is a small town that has the most sunshine on the island. And basically they were saying, hey, you want to work online because you can do that? You want to work remotely? Why don't you work remotely here with your feet in the water and the sand and fresh fruit and whatever else? So a lot of digital nomads have made their way there. They come for 3 or 4 months or whatever, and then they leave again. So let's talk about the lifestyle. Well, Madeira is basically a melting pot of different ethnic groups. And we talked about that before. You're so close in Europe to going to these different locations, different parts of Europe. So there's a lot of Italians, a lot of Germans, a lot of Brits, a lot of South Africans in there, as I mentioned before. But they also bring they bring a bunch of stuff with them. Sorry, getting old sucks, doesn't it? The words just don't come out as easy. The restaurants, you have all these different ethnic restaurants. Amazing food, which we'll talk about a little bit later. The island is safe. Portugal is rated the 6th safest country in the world. Madeira is an island of Portugal. It's even safer because, it's not like you can steal a car and get away, right? Where are you going to go? So there's not a lot of crime there. And a lot of it has to do because of the people there. The people are very friendly, but they're also family focused. They are not going to be spending time breaking into cars and stuff like that. You might get some of that action happening when you get someone who comes from, a different country that are just looking for opportunities. But again, you got to pay money to get on the plane to get there. Who's going to do that when I can just walk down the street to the train station and pickpocket someone there? So it is considered a very safe location. And, the people are friendly. A lot of people speak English. They teach it in the schools. It's part of their push for tourism, making sure they can speak. And depending on where you go, the more closest to tourist areas and stuff like that, you're going to see those people. You're going to meet people that speak English better. As you get into the smaller towns and stuff that are away from the tourism, of course, there's not as much of a need to speak English. But there's always some young student around that you can go, hey, excuse me, I don't understand this. Can you help me out? And they speak English fairly well. Transportation. So let's talk about air transportation. The beauty of Madeira is that it is between 2 and 4 hours away from most European centers. So it's 4 hours to Madrid by plane. That's with a layover in Lisbon. It's 2.5 hours from Berlin. It's 2.5 to 3 hours to London. And we met people there that would come for the weekend from Berlin because it's just a 2-hour flight, whatever. So that also means if you're living there, which is what our intention to do, is that we will also be able to take advantage of that transportation. There's more and more flights coming out of North America. So there are direct flights from New York as well as Washington, D.C. In Canada, there's flights out of Ottawa as well as Toronto that are direct flights. Now, we like KLM. Okay, so we'll spend the money to have a nicer flight. But the problem with KLM is that you're going through Amsterdam. So it is Edmonton to Toronto, Toronto to Amsterdam, Amsterdam to Porto, Porto to Madeira. That's about 17 to 20 hours. Whereas if I go Edmonton to Toronto, and then the Azores airline will go from Toronto to Madeira, but has a stopover in the Azores. I don't think you even get off the plane. It just drops people off and then continues on. And that cuts about 5 hours off the time. So there are more and more opportunities coming up for people to travel into these different locations directly. As far as transportation on the island, if you're trying to get to one of the different communities, they do have a bus system, very much like the old Greyhound that used to go to the small towns and stuff like that. So they do have buses there that will go out to those areas. The challenge with that, of course, is that they don't run every hour. You might catch it in the morning at 9. It'll take you 3 hours to get to some spot. They drop you off, and then the bus leaves in another 2 hours to come back. So instead, what you can do is you can take a cab, you can hire a driver for the day, or you can rent your own car, and then that 3-hour trip goes down to about an hour. So there's different options depending on how much money you want to spend and what you want to do. Within Funchal, again, you can rent a car, but parking is always is a pain. And parking's fun. I haven't talked about this before in my presentation. Parking, there's a thing called Portuguese parking. Anyone been to Portugal at all? I should have asked that earlier, right? Do you know what I'm talking about, Portuguese parking? I'm just going to park in the middle of the road, or I'm going to put 2 wheels up on the sidewalk that's only this big and leave the rest of the car there, and that's all that's in there. And whoops, come on, you silly thing. And so you'll find people just parked in the middle of nowhere that you have no idea like why they parked there. But that's one of the things when you rent a car, where are you to park it? So typically people will do Bolt. Bolt is their version of Uber. So it's less expensive than taking a cab, and it's pretty quick. Great for in the town, in the city and stuff. I mean, it costs you $5 to get from, or maybe $10 to get you from one part of the city to the other, really, really quick and fast. And of course, they have like scooters, if anyone wants to do electric scooters, electric bikes to rent. Again, I mentioned there's tours and there's cabs as well. Funchal is walkable in certain areas. So there's the area called the Lido that walks in, and it's all on the ground, kind of one level. So there are areas, if you're going from east to west, that it's fairly level. But there's still going to be some slight hills up and down as you go along. One of the cool things we saw was pedestrians right of way. Now, here in Canada, the pedestrian right of way works like this. It's supposed to work like this. If you've seen a kid on a phone, you know this doesn't work. But stop, look both ways. When it's clear, then you can proceed across the intersection. In Portugal, the pedestrian has the right of way. So I've seen people where pedestrians will just come and they don't look, they just cross just like they were a teenager on a phone. But the Portuguese people will lock their brakes for that. Like they are expecting that these people have the right of way and they will stop. I've been at crosswalks and I'll stand back 10 feet because I'm going to cross, but I'll wait till the buses go by and stuff. This bus will lock up his brakes to stop so I can cross. And even though I go, he still is going to stop. So it's part of that being safe and stuff. But it's just kind of an interesting observation as you watch people walking around. Restaurants are amazing. We were there for 3 months. Typically, we would eat out once a day, but we did healthy food for the rest of the time. But yeah, I mean, typically we eat out 1 meal a day or something like that. And I mean, not overly expensive. I'm not going to say it's cheap. You'll hear people talk about Portugal being cheap. That was 2 years ago. Now it's gotten more expensive, okay? But it's still affordable. I'm not going to say it's cheap, but it's affordable. And when you get the food, the presentation is just absolutely stunning, what you're getting. And there are places that you can go to where you can get an inexpensive meal. There's one place across the street that we discovered later on. It was 10 euros, so that works out to about $15. And you've got a set 5 or 8 plates that you can choose from. But the portions are like honking huge, like American huge almost. So there's lots of different options available for you to look at. And again, remember that ethnic melting pot? Different flavors all over. One of the best surprises we had is we were in Old Town. So it's a bunch of tiny little buildings all crammed together and stuff, and you're walking along, and I saw this guy with a Wiener Schnitzel sign up, and I love brats. And when we were in Berlin, if anyone been in Berlin and had a currywurst, they take a brat and they cut it up into little slices, and then they put currywurst sauce on it and stuff like that. But what they have is this little tube, and they just drop the sausage in it, and the tube goes and cuts it all up for you. I find that fascinating. So when I saw this sign, I went to the guy and said, do you have the bratwurst cutter? And he goes, yes, I do. Can I use it? And he said, yes, you can. So awesome food, best fries in town, and very inexpensive. And beers usually, so that's about $3 for a glass. You didn't have it. No, you didn't have one glass. Is what she meant to say. So yeah, so some places are like, that's like fine dining, but some places are just very normal and it's very good. Concerts and festivals are going on all the time. It's just amazing what they have going on there. And again, affordable stuff. You're not going to get big names coming there, like Michael Bublé. He came and he played in Lisbon. So quite often what happens is, okay, Michael's coming. I'm going to book a flight from here to Lisbon. We'll spend the night there. We'll watch Michael, and then we'll come back the next morning. Flights over can, depending on the time of year, I mean, they can be fairly inexpensive. It might be $60 Canadian return. And I recently found out as a resident, you can go in and actually get money back because they want to make sure that Madeirans as residents aren't missing out on these cultural things. So if you take a flight and come back, you can go and get a certain percentage of that back. Don't tap me. Go to the next page. Come on. How are we doing for time? Oh, 20 minutes left. All right. Cost of living. This is our buddy Marco. Marco is one of the bartenders at our favorite rooftop bar. This view here is like a 360 view. Sunday afternoons, you can go up there and watch the sailing schools come back and forth. So all the sailboats, I heard some sailing people here or boating. They've got the smaller dinghies, but they also have some larger size boats, and you can just sit there, listen to music. Oh yeah, best 80s and 70s music. And you're up on a deck in the sun, this guy's bringing you drinks and stuff, and you're just watching the waves. What you see here at the bottom is the drink he's working on. It's called poncha. Poncha is a mix of sugarcane rum, orange juice, honey, and something else. And that long stick he's got, that's a blender. So it's a hand blender. He spins like that. It's got props in the bottom, and he mixes it all up. And everyone's got a different formula and recipe for poncha, and there's different flavors of poncha and stuff like that. But this is one of the if you get someone that's got fresh orange juice, which again grows all over the place. It's like down in the States, you got a machine there, you just grab it and squeeze the orange juice right in front of you. So all these drinks are all like that. Yeah, so that's the top of the rooftop. So cost of living. You're living on an island. Basically, a lot of stuff is limited in quantities or even what you can get at all, right? So because it's very expensive to bring stuff over on the ships and that. Here, if you decide, you know what, I want to go get a cable, like this cable broke here, I want to go down and get a new cable, you just walk down to 7-Eleven or something like that and you can grab a new cable. There, you're not going to get that. It's not like there's a little shop. There are little shops on a lot of corners, but they don't carry everything. So you're kind of limited in what you can get. You can get Amazon down there if you wanted to have something shipped to you. However, you have to go through Amazon Spain or Amazon Germany to get something shipped to you because the cost can be extremely prohibitive. If and one of the things that when we move there that we've heard, don't send stuff. Like if our family wants to send us stuff, it's like, no, don't send it because it'll cost more than whatever it's worth. What's that? Oh. It does that in Canada, but accommodation costs are, we were talking earlier about that. Accommodation costs, so if you were to do a VRBO or something like that, those costs are all going up. People have come in and have bought out, just like Vancouver, they bought a bunch of places. They want to use VRBO and charge a lot of money, but they just sit there empty. So there is a lot of that going on right now. I won't say that the accommodations are cheap. Again, they're affordable, but don't expect that you're going to get this cheap thing that you've heard. It's a great trip and all that. Lots of hotels there, lots of different levels of what kind of services you get and stuff like that. There's one hotel that we go to. It's great. It's where we go for happy hour. 5 o'clock. They have half price drinks and mocktails and stuff. And beautiful backyard with the trees and birds and whatever else. And we went down there. We said, "Do you mind if we come here? We're not guests here at the hotel." And they go, "No, it's fine. As long as you're going to buy a drink, whatever." They don't even say that. They don't care. So that's our afternoons. We can go outside into our big backyard, as we call it, and then just read a book or whatever. So it's really great options of accommodations all over the place. To keep in mind, as I mentioned earlier, if you have a true Portuguese home, there's no heat, there's no air conditioning. So sometimes they'll buy a plug-in heater, but I mean, we only use it in the wintertime. I think we used it twice. In other areas of Portugal or even up in the island when it's colder in different parts of the island, you'd probably use that more. But there is no central air. There is no air conditioning. And there's no dryer. You wash your clothes, you leave them hang out. So that's what we ended up doing as well. Groceries, you'll find what you're looking for there. You might not recognize the label. You might not be able to read the language. I looked at this stuff and it's like, is this margarine, sour cream, or chip dip? I have no idea because they all look the same. And I think it ended up being cream cheese is what it was. So, but it was great. But there's different brands you're not going to have. Like there's different things of chocolate bars that they just don't have there. So you learn what the local Portuguese chocolate's like. They have one of the things that we were big in is Diet Coke. Shelley and I like to have our Diet Coke. They don't have Diet Coke. You get Coke and Coke Zero. That's it. There's a couple places you can get Coke Zero Cherry, but that's about it. So there are limits. If you're expecting the experience at home to be there, you're going to be disappointed. Electricity is expensive because, again, you're on the island. They use gas a lot for the stoves and stuff like that. But get this, for cable, 180 channels, you get 200 gigs of internet, so 200 gigs up and down, unlimited internet, which is probably the plan most people here have, or something close to that. Landline and a mobile phone with 5 or 10 gigs is going to be 48 euros, which works out to about 75 Canadian for all of that. So, I mean, like I said, some stuff is cheaper, some stuff is more affordable or less affordable. So what's the lifestyle like? So these are a couple of the traditional Madeiran houses in an area called Santana that they have. You don't see them much anymore. It's like the houses down in Fort Edmonton. That's not what we live in now, and neither do the Madeirans. But it's kind of cool to see what they had because they had a room in the back, and they had the bathroom was outside, of course, a room in the back, a kitchen, and then a couple of beds in the front, and that was your place. Because your living space is all outside. You're in a big island. And that's really kind of cool when you see that. And that outdoor space that wait a sec, what did I miss here? Hang on. Lifestyle. I missed something. Did I do lifestyle twice? No, we did. Something happened to my slides. Oh my goodness.
Talk about the family. You talked about the family earlier.
Did I? Okay. So I'll quickly, well, maybe that's what I was going to talk about. Yeah, so everything's family oriented for a lot of the Madeirans and stuff, which is interesting because as an expat that's going to be living there, a lot of expats come there and they say, oh, I want to make friends, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we found it really interesting. The kids, a lot of kids are going to school until 7 o'clock at night. Now, there might be a break in, like a longer lunch break. One of the ladies that's a local there, she meets her daughter for lunch every day, and lunch is what, 12 to 3 or something like that? Like there's 2 or 3 hours they have for lunch. But they end up working, I mean, and that might be part of the siesta attitude. But what ends up happening is 7 o'clock at night, they come home. That gives them from 7 to 9 or 10, whatever, to make a meal, visit with your kids, do all the homework, whatever else. So although they're very friendly, they don't have time to make new friends, especially if you're someone that doesn't speak Portuguese, right? I mean, it's just the reality. You want to make all these friends, and they're like, I'm sorry, I don't have time. The other thing that's kind of interesting about it is everything is laid back. Is anyone familiar with the term mañana? Right? Mañana, it's popular in Mexico, in Panama. I don't know about Spain, but mañana means basically next week. It actually means in Portugal and probably in other areas, all it means is not today. I'm not saying next week, I'm saying the week after. I'm just saying not today. I'm not going to give you a number. That's mañana. And in Portugal, that's very common. Because a lot of people are coming over with the North American attitude of I put an order in, it comes in on this day, and I'm going to be sitting waiting for it, and you're going to be showing up. A lot of Portuguese don't want to upset you. So they'll say, okay, next week. Well, what they really mean is not today. But I know you're going to get upset if I tell you not today, so I'm just going to tell you next week. So it's very interesting as we are going through and looking at articles on running errands and stuff. They say, like, normally you would go out in the morning, I'm going to do this errand, then in the afternoon I'm going to do this errand, and then at night I'll do this errand. And they say, nope, in Portugal you're going to do an errand in the morning, and we'll see you in a couple days. And then you can get the second errand done. Because there's a lot of bureaucracy. They're not super tech in some ways. So there's a lot of paper pushing still. Like we went to get a financial number, it's called a NIF there, and the woman's got boxes and boxes of paper stacked high, and everything we did was on paper. And you're wondering, like, what do you do? Like, I didn't see anyone scanning it in anywhere like that. So in some ways, they're still kind of working through all that. Because again, they're a very poor country, so they don't have the access to the technology. But there are some things that they have made incredible advances in. An ATM, here you can go and do cash, right? There you can get your cash, you can pay your utility bills, you can pay your phone bill. There's a few other things you can do there. One of the things that I was really impressed with is if, let's say that you call me up and you go, Trevor, I need $200. I can go onto my app and I can go and I can say, John, 1157, and you just go to any ATM in Portugal, type in 1157, and bang, $200 shows up, or whatever I want to give you. So there's some things that they've really, as they're developing their technology, they've kind of are working together. So all the banks work together for that. Healthcare. So this picture, remember that top of the world that we were talking about? That's this picture here. We ended up on this tour, started off at sea level, drove for an hour to get to the top. After about 20 minutes, you hit clouds, and then it's all just cloudy and foggy and rainy and cold, and you think, oh, what a miserable day. I'm not going to be able to see anything. And then about 10 minutes before you hit to the top, you break through the clouds, and you're at the top of the world, like literally looking down on the clouds. And we were up there, and Shelley's looking around. She goes, where's that angel? I go, what angel? She goes, the cream cheese angel. Remember those commercials? Because that's what it looks like. It's beautiful up there. So healthcare is affordable there. Okay, they subsidize a bunch of stuff. It's affordable. It's good healthcare in Portugal, but Madeira's got some have some advantages that we'll talk about in a second. But it is affordable, and a lot of expats that are coming from the States, a lot of them are basically saying, I don't have enough money to live at home. I can't live in the States. I need to come here for the healthcare purposes. Great example, while we were away, I chipped a tooth, cracked it, chunk of tooth was gone, and it was wide open, and I said, I cannot be here for another month and a half with this. So we went down to the clinic, and we're expecting, I'll walk in, get an appointment, come back in a couple of days or something like that, right? Walked in, they said, can you come back at 11? And Shelley goes, well, it's 20 to 11 now. Oh, okay, just sit there and fill out the paperwork. So we filled out the paperwork, 11 o'clock, woman comes out, one of the techs comes out, brings me in. I go get my x-rays done, go into a room, a private room, not like one of those open ones that you see, like the cattle farms you see in some of these dental offices, but a private room, sit down with the dentist. We go through and we took out the rest of the filling, rebuilt the tooth around the side, put in a new filling, went out. So we had almost 2 hours there doing all that. And that was 125 euros, which works out to 250 Canadian as a walk-in, right? So, I'm not to say that's going to be your experience all the time, but we've talked to other people and I've read other people that have said the same thing. It's like you walk in and you can get an appointment done really quickly. And the other thing I want to mention too is, as far as affordable, when you look at benefit plans here, so we, as part of being a resident there, we want to get some private insurance. Private insurance does not cover prescriptions, okay? Which I thought was like, well, that's kind of weird. Prescriptions are heavily subsidized. So when you go and get your bottle of drugs or whatever it is, it might be €2 or €8. That's expensive, they consider. So they don't bother putting those in the plans. It's just a quick cost that you can easily absorb yourself. Public and private hospitals. Public hospitals are just as good. In fact, they often are using the same doctors. The difference is, as a public hospital, is that you might be longer in trying to get in to see someone, depending on what you're looking at. If it's a major, we need to have a surgery, and he was in an accident and his leg's coming off, they will get you in there right away. If you've just broken your arm or stubbed your toe or something like that, you can wait to see a doctor. So they do proper triage is what they're doing. In a private hospital, when you're paying for that, as those of you are, well, some of you are probably with like us with ARDA, and you get that travel insurance. You can go to the private hospitals. There, you'll get in a lot faster. You'll get doctors that speak English more often than not. And for those quick and dirty small things, you don't have to wait around. But in the end, if your leg needs to be amputated or something, they're sending you over to the public hospital, because the public hospital isn't just the doctor, it's the support that goes around it, the anesthesiologist, the x-ray techs and all that kind of stuff. So if something, they need to pull in 5 people, bang, everyone's there to do that. And a lot of people don't even bother with private stuff, they just stick with the public. One of the exciting things is they're building a new university campus dedicated to medical training for doctors and nurses and stuff. So it's this huge campus. It's going to take about another 4 or 5 years, probably about the size of McEwen is right now, and another half, my guess. And it's all dedicated to state-of-the-art medical treatment. Where are we at for time? I have 8 minutes left. This is great. Okay, moving to Portugal, what's involved? This here picture is an example of the many, many, many coffee shops or outdoor patios available in Portugal and Madeira. And what I want to point out here is, yeah, that is what a flight looks like. Not 2 or 3 or 4 of those things. That's a flight of ponchas. And those are all the different flavors that they have in there. All right, what's more important is look at the group behind them. These guys here, look at, they're all empty. What? What? Oh, what's going on? Hang on. No, it's not doing what it's supposed to do. Come back here. What? Why did it do that? Sorry, this is, I know, I'm just going to see what's going on here. Video conferencing media, why aren't you doing this? Rear, come on.
It knows you're leaving.
No, it's just, this is WebEx stuff. Give me 2 seconds just to double check something. Come on, where's my settings? Oh, hang on. Now I know what happened. The screen keeps cutting out. I don't know why. There we go. We're back. All right. Technology, so impressive when it works. What was I talking about? Oh, let's go back here. Yeah. So the screen got overwhelmed by the poncha. So there's all the empty ones that we were talking about. I imagine they probably spent the day there. And that's one of the cool things about in the coffee shops and the restaurants and stuff, nobody's in a hurry. That includes the wait staff. You can sit down and be waiting 15, 20 minutes before they'll come to get your drink. But the whole idea is you're here, you're in the sun, take your time, breathe. So, excuse me, if you're planning on like, we're just gonna have a quick bite and then we're gonna go catch a show, yeah, that's probably not the best idea. Make sure your quick bite starts about 3 hours beforehand. All right, so why are Shelley and I moving there? I mentioned we're moving, right? Yeah, so December is our plan to be in Portugal. Going to be there for a couple of years and see where we go from there. Why are we moving? Well, the big reason is it is, hang on a second, where's my notes? Here we go. Waves. As landlocked people, we sit there and we watch the waves. There's nothing like sitting at a coffee shop and the waves are crashing beside you and stuff like that. Our favorite pastime is there's a restaurant that we sit at and there's a lookout point and all the people, the waves come splashing up and all the people will come and look over the edge. And then a big wave comes and splashes up and the wind blows and they all get soaked. And then you'll hear 2 people going, yes, as everyone shouts. Because it's just Shelley and I are so entertaining. We're on the side of Mother Nature. So, but yeah, just sitting there and just spending the day sitting in the sun, watching the waves, reading the book, whatever. That's pretty much one of the biggest reasons why. No ice during our winter. I mean, last year we had, and this past year, you guys might have had some, but last year, remember, it rained and then the sidewalks were covered in ice and you couldn't walk, and even we had crampons on, you still were slipping and sliding. I got so sick and tired of that. And I used to do winter camping. At this point, it was like, no, I'm going to sit in the sun. I'm going to watch my waves. I'm going to read a book, and that's it. So that's a big reason for us why we're doing that. When you go visit the countries in the EU, you can only go for 3 months, then you have to leave. They don't want you coming in here. They don't want you staying there for, a few months and then taking off and traveling around the whole place and then come back and stay there. So one of the things that we decided to do, because we love to travel so much, is we want to use Portugal, Madeira as a launch point to do some traveling to other countries. Because as you'll find out, it's expensive to fly over to Europe and then come back. So now we just fly there and we don't have to worry about it, and we can take advantage of those cheaper trips that they have in Europe. But one thing that we both are very excited about is getting involved in the community there. While I was there, I did 4 training sessions. I presented at a conference. I've got involvement with 2 or 3 nonprofits locally there. They are not super techs. Even though that some of the younger kids and stuff have become familiar with Google and Microsoft and that, they still aren't tech savvy. So that's one of the things that I can bring into the table, and we'll be more and more involved in getting some stuff there. But even the community, knowing that they are at a point, as I mentioned before, they're the poorest country in the EU, but I mean, they were under a dictatorship not that long ago. They're still just trying to find themselves, right? It's having all these tourists come in and buying up all their property, and it's like, whoa, we never thought of that. There's all sorts of cool opportunities that Shelley and I are excited to bring to the community, regardless what that is. For some people, it's the tax agreement. There's agreement between Canada and the United States for income tax purposes. For the most part, because we pay 15% in Canada and Portugal is 10%, we only have to pay the Canadian taxes side of things on most stuff. If we were to sell our house, we would have to pay as income generated over a certain level, we would have to pay income tax in Portugal as well. We're still figuring that stuff out, but for some people, that's why a lot of people are coming there. So first step to go there is to get a visa. The visa basically says you can come and stay here for 4 months, not the 3 visitor, but for 4 months. And as part of that 4 months that you're here, before you get that visa, you have to show us you're serious. So we need to see that you have a bank account in Portugal. We need to see that you have a NIF number, which is the financial registration number. You have to show us you have a contract to say you're going to stay for a year, not just come for 6 months and then do your traveling and then go back home and leave. So you have to show that you're serious. As part of that process, you also have to do things like show us your income that you're going to be living off, because you're not living off of us. You have to show us that you've got your own income. The security, so we have to pay. We pay for the RCMP to go through and take our fingerprints and whatever else. And those all have to be notarized and stamped to show that they are official. A bunch of other. Yep. Sorry.
Can I just add, the bank account needs to be funded.
Oh, thank you. I was going to.
It needs to be funded with at least 1 year of their income, if not 2. And that's not unusual for the Schengen region, right? So.
Yes, thank you. So I think roughly speaking, a person there makes about $10,000 a year. Sorry, 10,000 euros? Thank you, 10,000 euros a year. So we have to have at least that amount of money, as well as then with, they say if you want to increase your odds, have more money in there. And that way they know that you're not going to be just coming in and then living off of their social services and stuff. You've got your own money to live. You're not going to be using their food bank and stuff like that. So you have to get all that, upload these things, get a meeting, making it sound a lot easier than it is, get a meeting, and then they say, yes, you've got your visa. So they give you this document, and now allows us to stay for 4 months. During that time when we're in Portugal, we have to open up utilities. We have to register with the government there, and I'll do all that stuff to show that you're serious, that you've got everything set up. And then you go and get an appointment, and that's where they give you a temporary residency. As a temporary resident, you are now you now have services available to you, such as healthcare. So we can now use the public healthcare system. We can now take advantage of. Remember, I mentioned that they had the discounts for when you're flying. Because we're now a temporary resident, we can do that. The temporary residency gives you 2 years. After 2 years, you can renew it for 1 year, and 1 year, and 1 year, up to 5 years. Once you get to the 5-year mark, you can go and say, I want to be a permanent resident here. So that allows you to, again, have certain things. Regardless of temporary or permanent residency, there are some income taxes you start paying So, and again, there's different things and different rules. I don't want to get into it because that's muddy waters like you wouldn't believe. But you now become a permanent resident. It gives you all those advantages and stuff. That's it. Okay. So what I'm going to do for those of you that were on the online, if you put in the questions here, no, nobody put a question in. Let me see if the online people are still there. Yeah, you're still there. Okay, that's good. Well, let's then. All right. So any of you guys that are online, if you want to throw a question in there real quick. In the meantime, anyone locally here have a question? Yeah.
Are you buying a house there?
Are we buying a house? No. So our oldest son is moving back home, and he will be looking after the house. So he's this is between us, right? So he's not renting, he's living at the house, because if he's renting, that's a potential income. So he's going to be living at the house and looking after the house while we travel. I'm not comfortable yet selling the house. Market's not the greatest now, but I always want to be able to have an escape plan, right? We've talked to people from South Africa and the States and stuff, and they've sold their houses. Some people have sold their houses and moved there blind. They never even took a trip there. So yeah, again, there's a lot of Americans that have done that because again, it comes down to that healthcare, right? They don't have healthcare, affordable healthcare. But no, I don't want to get tied down. And even if we were to sell the house, I would never buy a house again. And everyone's got a different viewpoint on that. But I mean, I want a house. No, we're not gonna.
I have a different viewpoint on that. Just to be clear.
Okay.
She's asking if you're buying a house there.
No, oh, I'm sorry. I focused wrong. So no, the answer is no, we are not buying a house there. I don't think we could afford it. Housing has jumped up so high in Funchal. We probably could afford something in the backwoods or something like that. But it just, yeah. What are we living at? We started off with a VRBO, and basically it's an apartment 5 years ago, and we're in the same apartment. So when we finished we got there and we said, hey, you know what? We're coming back. Are you guys interested in doing long term? And they said yes, because the people we deal with are actually just the managers of the apartment. So they the whole idea of every 2 weeks you have to get a cleaner to come in and blah blah blah, all that stuff. They have their own businesses that they're doing and stuff. So they've basically said, you know what, we're going long term, and we said, sign us up, so we have to have a 1 year contract that we show to Portugal to let them know that we're serious about this. We do have that. We signed that before we left in March. Give me a sec, where was I going with that? 1 year. The neat thing about the laws in Portugal is they are more on side of the tenant than they are on the owner. So you can't kick me out for no good reason, but I also can say, I'm going to stay here another year. You can't say no. Like, you can't just go, I don't like you or whatever else, or, sorry, it's not going to work out. The tenant actually has more power there, which is kind of interesting. Any other questions? Really? That's it? Anyone online? What's that?
The 3 months that you were allowed, you didn't need a visa then?
No, because we're traveling there as vacationers.
And we actually found out when we got to the border that 90 days is the max. And I'm like, pretty sure we're under 90 days. I did not know that.
Yeah, we didn't realize that.
The rule follower, that was a really bad thing.
You had said 4 months.
That's the visa. The visa allows you to go past, because as a visa, you're not there as a tourist. You're there as someone that wants to move there. And that's the whole point of the visa, is that you're, at least the visa that we got, it's the D7 designation. There's other visas for like the nomads. There's something called a D8, I think it is. And so they can be there longer. They can make income. I mean, there's just different reasons for it. Ours, the purpose for it is to get yourself set up so that you've got your utilities hooked up and all that, so that when you're ready, we'll make you a temporary resident.
I had a question, but I did look it up, but maybe if anyone else knows or wants to know, is the Madeira on any active volcano, or is it inactive?
I've been told it's inactive. I've been told that there hasn't been earthquakes there for a while. Yeah, no, I did. We were. Yeah, it must be active because Shelley fell down so many times.
Children and unlikely to erupt.
And if,
Last activity was 6,500 years.
yes, yeah, even earthquakes. Because I was asking about earthquakes, because a lot of the places you're going to, and there's cliffs like 600, 700 feet high, and I mean rocks are going to fall down and stuff. And the guys are there like, yeah, we haven't had any earthquake action in years.
All the fireworks. Portugal has lots of fires.
Mainland do, yeah. In fact, one of the dangers of Madeira is that someone decided it was a good idea to bring eucalyptus trees over. So a lot of the forests are eucalyptus. Well, eucalyptus is an oil-based plant. So when those things catch fire, they're on it right away because it is so dangerous. And in fact, they actually, if there's an excuse to cut down on a eucalyptus tree, they'll do it because, like I said, they grow like weeds and they're just very dangerous with the fire seasons. Portugal also has a lot of fires and stuff. That's true. But again, we don't in Madeira. It's not as hot there, right? Not to say, because I've read the other day, someone said that it got up to 32 or 35 or something like that, but that's very rare that happens. But again, I mean, it's a new world right now, right? Our climates are doing all sorts of stuff.
Is it only one volcano or is there more than one volcano?
I don't know. I've heard different things. And when I say different things, it's you get different tour guides, right? And some of them are locals and some of them are German guy that came over and that speaks some Portuguese, and so he's a tour guide. I've heard there's 4 volcanoes. I've heard there's one volcano with just 4 ridges or 4 peaks. So you only need one to get you scared. Yeah, it's interesting as we go there. I mean, you look at the weather, and the weather says it's going to rain, and more times than not, like at least in the wintertime, it doesn't rain. Or if it does, it's cloudy for like 4 or 5 hours in the morning. So you'll have put your sweater on and something like that, and then by the afternoon you're down to a t-shirt and wished you hadn't worn jeans that day. So it's kind of neat about that. The other side is you get coastal warnings all the time where there's storms and stuff happening south that could bring in waves as high as 4 meters high. Never seen anything that high. We'll see waves that come in like 2 meters or something like that, and that's where we go down to the coffee shop because that's where the waves really come crashing in and stuff. And if you go into YouTube, search for my name. If you go into my vacation playlist, I've got some great drone videos of the waves crashing and stuff like that. If you stick around after the presentation's going, I'll throw one on the screen there just so you can see it. Did I go? Oh, I'm already 10 minutes past. Oh wait, so. I'm going to stop there. If you have any other questions, by all means, informally, we can sit and chat. But I mean, we're only supposed to go to 3 o'clock. That's it. Rick, did you want to address the group?
Shame myself again?
Go with your strengths, man.
Oh, you heard about my team. Well, first of all, I think we need to thank once you get settled in there, send us your coordinates so that we can let everybody around you know how to get in touch with you when we come for a visit.
It's a 1-bedroom.
Yes, yeah, we specifically did that. So.
From a 5-bedroom to a 1-bedroom.
Yeah, so 1 bedroom, but we know where there's some really good apartments or condo or hotels nearby. Okay, I guess you guys can go now.
Or we're going to stay in there.
Or stay and chat. That's the whole idea, was to have a mix and that. I'm just going to go here and see who's online here. I'm going to stop the recording for you guys that are online. Stop sharing, and I'm going to stop the recording. And